So we'll do a roll call quickly to confirm that we have a quorum. Terry Ackerman,
Present.
Stephen Crane,
Present.
Carl Packard,
Present.
Jared Stanton,
Present.
Elise Woodward, present. So that's 5. So that's our quorum. We have 8 committee members now. So thank you all for joining us. First on our agenda is minutes. There are 3 sets of minutes that are outstanding, but we do not have minutes to approve today. So we will be doing that in January. Cynthia has told me that she will work on them over the holidays. We have future meetings set up for January 6th and 20th. And if we followed on to February, it would be February 3rd and 17th at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoons. Is this time a convenient time to continue our meetings next year, or should we consider changing the date and or time?
Honestly, I just, is an evening time or even just a little later in the afternoon possible? I mean, it just this kind of gets right in the middle of the.
Okay.
Whatever.
So we originally set this time because it was convenient for the town manager and the school
That's right.
superintendent. So I guess my question is to Stephen and,
Yeah.
to Jared, whether this is a good time or whether we should move it.
I think I would.
Commitments with the kids.
So I think what I would suggest is that we have this conversation, have the next one on our regularly occurring, and have the discussion with the fuller committee.
Yeah.
And be able to get a
It's
calendar.
okay. I mean,
I could certainly look at my calendar and say that the whatever the first week in January or whenever we're never going to meet next,
Yeah.
to look ahead and say, yeah, I could do it on Thursday or whatever. But if Lori isn't here to make that commitment, I think that we should just hold off and do that next
And
meeting.
Carrie, yeah.
And Carrie, correct.
A good suggestion.
Yes,
So
indeed.
we'll discuss it on January 6th, whether we want to continue with this time frame. Okay.
Okay.
So the main purpose of our meeting today is to recap the public forum and the public comment we received. And so I'd like to do that. And I think we'll probably be working from our memories or our notes because we do not have the minutes nor a recording immediately available to us. So I think I've got a couple of comments I'll just run through. First off, we got the question again of why did we choose $5 million as the threshold for very large projects? And Stephen, you answered that, but that was one question that came up. We had the comments from the Finance Committee, the interest in the Finance Committee and having a capital projects committee. And the details are in a letter that they wrote to the select board and this committee. The capital planning effort from their point of view would effectively smooth the debt service curve. So that's a comment. There was a comment about integrating town and school. And then an overall debt capacity analysis. And to try to predict a year-over-year tax increase. And another benefit of a capital planning committee that was mentioned was the institutional memory that it would provide. Are there other comments that people have or remember from the public forum we'd like to mention?
I guess I'll make a comment, is that on a yearly basis, the Finance Committee is charged with providing an estimate of future taxes. And up until now, I think it might have changed recently since I haven't been on it, but the future capital, debt service expenditures for capital projects that had not been passed by town meeting already did not go into that estimate. So it really kind of made the estimate.
So it was an incomplete estimate.
Hmm?
It It was an incomplete estimate.
Yes, yeah. So with the capital planning, I think that'll help to make that prediction or forecast, more accurate.
Okay, good.
Well, I mean, to that point, we talked about the length of the capital plan and had the conversation about accuracy. And that's always my primary concern is the further out you go, the less reliable it is. And
Yep.
the dumber you look when you get to that project, and it's twice as much as you thought it was going to be because you were using the back of an envelope to guesstimate the placeholder. But I do think that the 10-year charge is appropriate with that disclaimer.
Right, I have two more questions in my notes. Linda Escobedo asked, what about identifying projects more than 10 years out? And Elise, I think you answered that the challenge is not in identifying them, but in sequencing the
Mhm.
projects. And I think we also talked about how it's necessary to update this plan annually. Somebody asked if there was a committee, would it only meet once or what would happen? And I have again that Elise answered, a standing committee would meet every year at the same time of year. So it's kind of a seasonal thing.
Okay.
I guess I also have a question about your comments, Elise, that Mary Hartman made from her letter.
Yep.
I know we all have the letter, but I don't have it in front of me. Those things that the Finance Committee wants, smoothing the debt and integrating, consolidating town and school plans and institutional memory, predictability, are these things that they're saying a standing committee will do? Or are they saying we'll take any process that'll do these things?
I'd have to go back and find Mary's letter. Do you have it in
Yeah.
front of you, Elise?
I don't. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Because
rapidly.
my recollection is that it was in any scenario, we want these things.
Well, that's my recollection as well.
You know what the date of the letter was?
No, I'm sorry.
I'm thinking
Uh,
August, maybe around August.
Oh,
August, that far back?
Yeah, it's back before, like when Mike Lawson was still chairman, before town meeting, maybe even June.
maybe that's why I can't find it.
I thought it was more recent than that, but I can't see it. I'm not finding it either.
Oh, no, this is. Anyway.
So I have a draft letter to the select board. I have a copy of the draft letter from Tom Tarpey. I don't know if that is,
That's several years old, though, I think.
yeah, I don't know if that's the final letter or not.
What's the date of that letter?
There's no date on it, sadly.
Hmm.
But I think, wait a minute, hold on, let's see. Draft letter.
Because that could be it. It was quite a while ago.
Yeah, well, okay, it's 2019 was Tom's letter. Let's see, wait a minute. Yeah, on the capital planning. Yeah, he had a 2018 letter about permanent building committee, but that was the whole panel. Yeah.
All right, so so I can share this draft letter, and we'll have to take it with a grain of salt to be sure that because it could be slightly modified in its. All right, let me see if I can get.
Well, either way, the fundamental question of the debt smoothing and all of those other things, those are really decisions that I think a freestanding committee, at least the freestanding committees that I'm experienced with, would not really, they evaluate and rank projects and don't necessarily get, and the financing of it is a part of it. But looking at the finances of borrowing for a particular project in the context of borrowing that the town is doing for other things, in addition to capital, is something really that the finance committee does, the select board does, and the school committee does. So I would say that the enhanced process option that we had on there would probably be best suited to address some of the issues raised by the finance committee. But without seeing the details of Mary's letter, but I think some of the goals that she stated, I thought the enhanced process were best suited to be more direct, because ultimately, a freestanding committee is still just advisory.
Right.
They don't make the decisions to flatten to bring borrowings to town meeting. Only select board or school committee does that.
So I will find Mary's letter and forward it with the agenda for January 6th. I think it would be perhaps useful, if you all agree, for us to think about strengthening making more specific the proposal to enhance the status quo. And because I think that if we were more specific about that, then we could determine whether we would be able to accommodate all of these interests
Right,
in that process.
absolutely. I think that's probably our biggest task ahead of us. And it's going to, I think, take some time to really flesh it out. But I think that this enhanced process could certainly do all of those things that you listed. But I think it's very necessary that we get specific about how it would work.
I agree. I think one of the things in some of the comments and some of the feedback, I think one of the things is this tier 3 versus other tiers, where some of the feedback was really related to areas that were kind of outside the charge. They're good. They are good observations about capital planning generally, but we're trying to stick to our charge. But I do think that minimally, I intend to take the feedback and see and try and incorporate it into our regular capital planning process for tier 1, tier 2 projects.
Right.
And then I think for tier 3, that's where we really have to be specific about the enhanced process versus a freestanding committee, which my own personal 2 cents is based on the feedback that I heard. I don't know that a freestanding committee in an advisory capacity really would accomplish would really have the wherewithal to do the things that the people who are the commenters would really want to have happen. So I think it really does rise to the level of school committee, finance committee, select board, like those, or regional school district even, because they're really the ones that are feeding those types of decisions into a town meeting warrant.
Well, and I do think though that in the enhanced process, there could be some suggested actions that would give more specificity and credibility to the long-term projects, so that we try to frame, what these projects really will be, what they will cost, how we will escalate the dollars, all of that. What the time frame is for a feasibility study, whatever it is. But
Yeah, our recommendation could be, we recommend that there is an enhanced process that the select board school committee meet annually to review the tier 3 capital projects. We could also say we recommend that if there's a facility project that includes site selection, that a site selection committee be established for that project that includes members of the neighborhood, stuff like that people really want to see. Or you could just establish a freestanding committee that handles that on an ongoing basis. But
yeah.
I think there are limitations to that will be exposed pretty quickly into it.
So I suspect that there would be a kind of a tier of projects that might come out of the facility assessment that's being underway.
Mm-hmm.
So when that's concluded, it seems that, and there might be a sequencing, or prediction of sequencing of those projects, or just, if not, just an evaluation of them. Which might give some predictability to how frequently those projects could be taken up.
I actually think you could take the example of a public safety complex, which I think was number 2 on our we actually did the town. Lori Hunter and I actually did meet and discuss capital, and I did submit a shared list of priorities like a year ago. And I think the public safety complex was the second one. And when you were looking for examples of tier 3 projects, I didn't put it forward because it hasn't really gotten anywhere and it's not finalized. But if you use that as an example to say, pick a random site, pick a site that it would normally never be built on as a site as a modeling element for, so we're going to build a public safety complex. I shouldn't say this out loud, but we would use a hypothetical and say the public safety complex is going to go on Emerson Park. Now, of course, it's not going to go on Emerson Park, but it's a place that people can visualize. And then you'd say, okay, so to really analyze if this should go here, what options analysis do we need to do? And then you would have a process for options analysis. And then you'd have like a committee that would review, like you'd either have a site selection committee or, like I said, a standing committee. So we could take that one as an example to talk people through what that would look like in real time, just as a sample. I just don't want people to get confused and think that we're actually doing that.
Well, I frankly think that of a town facility building, consolidated facilities would be an excellent case study because it is not far-fetched.
No.
It is a likely project sometime, in the next millennium. So.
Yeah, it would make a good case study, and we are gonna, at some point in time, we are gonna be doing one.
Yeah, right.
Getting back to something you said a few minutes ago, Elise, about a time frame. I think we need to be specific about 2 types of time frames. One is the estimated time frame of the projects that are on this template. That's the time frame we've been talking about. Like the public safety building, we estimate will happen in 2025 or whatever. Now the other type of time frame came up when someone asked the question, is the standing committee going to meet? When do they meet? I think we need to specify that this enhanced process happens every year. If town meeting is in April, then the enhanced process, these are the things that happen in, say, October, November, December. January, whatever, that kind of time frame.
That's important. So there are two schedules that we'll need to be addressing.
And the way I look at that also is right now, everybody's talking about, okay, in the future, we're going to have some town projects, a public safety, public works, townhouse, but we don't see any big school projects on the horizon. But I still feel like maybe it's going to be 10 years. We don't know how many years it's going to be, but at some point there will be a big tier 3 school project. And if we've been running this enhanced process every year, okay, that year comes up. The new Ripley or whatever it is is now discussed, and it might get sequenced at year 8 or whatever, right? And then it moves up each year and is updated.
So we're starting with, I think, that this idea that there will be a capital plan, a consolidated capital. I think that's really what you got to start with. I mean, I think we've said that, we understand that, but maybe we just really have to, put that out there. There will be a consolidated capital plan for the town that will be updated every year, and it will look out, it appears at this point, 10 years in the future. And that gets updated so at some point, this thing that might be 30 years out, 20 years from now, which, will go by in the blink of an eye, it'll show up on that 10-year capital.
Yeah.
So then the next step is, well, how do we, who's in charge of doing that? How many entities are involved in that? And I think, we did want to bring some sort of a public, citizen component into it, whether it's the finance committee or a standing committee or something like that.
So the 2002 report that we saw, it basically did that, and then it said it looked out at large scale it wasn't a capital plan, it was a large scale projection of, because it was really teeing up the elementary school
Yep.
projects.
Right.
But it did say we're looking out, I don't know what the term was, it may have been 10 or 20 years. But it did say a middle school, for example,
Yep.
is beyond, we don't see a middle school or these other projects in this term that we're looking at, but we know they're still out there 20 years away, like you said. Next year they are.
2002, I think they had the middle school was the first project.
Yeah.
Well, but then what they ended up, what the version I saw, they said basically a middle school around 2022, and I was like, wow, they were right on it.
No, they put the middle school first, and then they didn't follow it.
Yeah.
But the version I saw had the elementary schools as the ones that they were teeing up. But either way, Carl, we say we look out 10 years, so we know that, I don't know, a new elementary school renovations may be 20 years away. And so we may want to just put out there that you're going to have these large scale obligations 20 years from now, but they're not.
It could be like an appendix to the plan. These
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Mm. Carl, as you were talking, I realized that every time we're talking about this consolidated plan, I have a picture in my mind of this spreadsheet that's very similar to the spreadsheet that we're doing now for tier 1 and tier 2. And I think that just because it's, I'm imagining it doesn't mean that everybody else is. They might be imagining it differently, or they have no idea. So I could volunteer for our next meeting. I could put together a one-page template. It won't have any projects in it. It's just going to say like project number 1, what year, just to have a one-page spreadsheet that we could start discussing, agree, what do we want to see on this template?
Yeah, and it would be different for, if we're looking at 10 years, we'd be looking for certain very vague information, but as it gets closer and closer,
Right.
yeah.
So I could put the initial draft together and then everybody could say, well, wait a minute, you have to add that and do that. And, we could have a discussion about it next time.
That sounds great, Terry. Thanks for volunteering to do that. I think that will move our conversation forward. So what other additional research or work should we undertake? I sort of feel like we may need to do some summarization of some of the original research we did, the investigations of other towns and their processes, and to be able to catalog that as information for us. And I think we'll need that for the report that we would write.
Yep, I agree.
Okay,
In fact, someone asked about that at the forum.
they did.
Other towns have you looked at? So I
Yeah.
think we need to document that.
That we've looked at other towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, which ones we've looked at and
Which, whose system did we like? Yeah. Okay. I'll try to summarize that.
I'm not sure we found any town whose system we exactly liked. I think we're sort of creating a new system if we do this enhanced thing. But we might find that we liked elements of each.
Elements of several of them. Yeah. Okay. All right. So for our next meeting, we need the FinCom letter, the a summary of our recommendations from our PowerPoint. Terry's going to do a spreadsheet template. I'm going to do a recap of our research. Stephen, will the TBA building assessment plan finish in January? Do we know when?
I would like to say yes, but I think I'd be fibbing if I did.
TBA is TBD.
TBA is TBD.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a draft of it now?
There is. It's actually a draft at the library, which unfortunately is now closed for browsing. But
Okay.
it had been there in the reference section because it's a massive document. So we have to kind of get through that.
But I remember recently seeing some kind of a summary.
I think there's a summary on the website.
On the town website?
Or I circulated it. Or I circulated it to the committee.
Yeah,
There's like in the board. It was in a select board packet way back.
Yeah, I looked, it wasn't itself on the town website. It may have been in a packet, but it wasn't,
I couldn't find it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So could you circulate that to this task force?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I'll make a note of that.
Thank you. Shall we talk about how we might present our findings to the select board, the format for the report?
Okay.
Is it premature?
I mean, I think it's not premature to start thinking about it, but I think we're going to have to. I guess I'm more of a like, let's see what we're going to say and then determine how we're going to say it.
Okay.
but I'm not sure what you're asking, Elise. Are you asking if it's going to be a written report or a verbal report or both, or are you asking something different?
Well, I assume it will be a written report with a
Mhm.
verbal presentation at a
Correct.
select board, in
I
person,
agree.
at a select board meeting, in Zoom.
Right.
And I guess my experience is that I'm just looking, it's, let's say it's January 1st and we need to finish this by June 30th. My committee experience tells me we should lay out our tasks and get moving on them, even before we have a clear, complete recommendation. Because there are some aspects of a written report that can be prepared before the recommendations are known.
Mhm.
So I think that what we could do is chapter one. Well, chapter one is the charge. It's almost like our PowerPoint presentation. But I would say chapter two is the issues that were identified in the charge and through these meetings by public comment and our own discussions. And say, here are the concerns that we were really looking to address. And, 10-year plan instead of a 5-year plan,
Mhm.
smooth borrowing rates, collaboration between the town and the schools on project planning, like those kind of big ticket items, and lay those out. And then once we, and then I guess, freestanding committee, yes, no.
Right, well,
What is a large?
committee is one aspect of the recommendations. There's a constellation of recommendations, and a
Right.
committee might be one of those. Okay. Well, I would have an interest in making this report as succinct as possible.
Definitely. And I think that's not like a selfish thing or anything. I think that the reader also would like it to be short. And
Right.
we put all kinds of appendices in for those who are interested. But, if the report is only 10 pages long, it's not intimidating. It's inviting in a way. Like Envision Concord was so amazing, but it was overwhelming, and it was good to have a summary. So we certainly don't want it to be hundreds of pages long or anything like that.
Well, Envision Concord was a 2-year effort, and so
Oh, yeah.
this is
This is
apples and
much
oranges.
smaller.
Yeah.
Right, much smaller.
This is a 6-month effort squeezed into 14 months.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
was gonna say, it's ending up being 2 years.
Okay. All right. Well, I think another task would be to go back through our meeting minutes and collect other public comment that we may have received during those meetings. And I think there may be only half a dozen comments, but that is also in the category of what we heard from the public. So,
I would volunteer to do that. And I would also include that FinCom letter that we're looking for, and there's a League of Women Voters letter.
yes, okay.
And I would take those 2 letters and all the meeting minutes and put all the public comments in one document, or some kind of phrase that summarizes each. Just we can see it and decide what kind of format it'll have.
You have time to do that?
You put it as an appendix, but then somewhere in the report,
Right.
these were the highlights of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that would take me a lot of time. We don't
Okay.
have that many meeting minutes. We have, I don't know, 12 or something. There's maybe one comment sometimes.
Maybe 16, 8 before we paused and 6 or 8 after.
Okay, but there's a lot of time when the public was not there.
Correct.
I think the thing that will take me the longest is to find all the minutes. So hopefully they're all posted and
They are posted, except for the ones that we have not approved yet.
correct. So I think it would take me an hour.
Okay,
Find all the documents. It's just, I think it's a short job. I'd be willing to do it.
all right. We accept.
Okay.
you.
Terry, I've been, I think, comprehensively, dragging and dropping folders into my capital planning file. So if you want at some point to go through and compare a list of files, we can do that too.
A list
I'm-
of files.
I'm
Of documents,
confident-
a list of documents that we've received over time.
Okay. That's great.
Okay, well, I'm only volunteering right now to put together the public comments.
Super.
Oh, okay, sorry. I
No,
misunderstood.
yeah, taking all the documents we've received, that's a huge job.
Yeah.
Elise was talking about the public comments and I volunteered to do that part.
Yeah, super. Okay. All right. What else? What other reactions to the public forum?
Well, I
do
think
we have?
I was kind of on to something also about this chapter 2 or whatever we call it. We should make a list of all the big questions that we had.
Yeah.
And we have a PowerPoint slide or two that's already got most of those questions.
We
Well,
we do have the PowerPoint. Jeremy sent me a list of participants in the public forum, and I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me right now, but so we do have that, that roster as well.
Yes, he sent that to all of us.
Okay. And I think that email had a link to the recording of the public forum as well.
There was only one person on that list of participants that I didn't recognize as a quote usual suspect.
I-
Who was that?
The gang like Linda Escobedo, the League of Women Voters, they were all there. FinCom,
Mary Hartman, yeah.
Lois something, whose name I did not recognize.
Yeah, you know what? I don't remember the name, but I do remember seeing it. And I want to say that I may have a recollection of where that came from. But I'd have to go back and look at the recording. She didn't say anything though, did she?
No,
No,
Oh, I know who it was. Lois. Oh, God. I know who she is. Remember Jim Catterton? Anybody?
yes,
His wife,
okay.
yeah, his widow, yeah.
who is Jim Catterton?
How to describe? He was very active, really bright guy, had a lot of good ideas. And, one thing that he sort of brought up was the need to revisit the, I guess it was the town charter and stuff like that. And so there was a
Yeah.
committee, and he worked on that. And yeah,
Yeah, he brought that, suggestion. I think he had it in a warrant article.
yep,
And the select board that year decided to establish a committee to review the charge. And so he did not move the warrant article. So,
but they
they
went ahead and
headed
did
off
it.
at the pass, but he was very interested in that. And I think he died the next year after that.
Yeah, he passed away from cancer,
Yeah.
really tragically.
So quite an involved citizen for many years.
Big on the community garden, I think was
Yep.
chair people.
Exactly. Yeah. Good memory, Carl. Thanks.
Well, when you said Lois, that's, yeah. Because I remember seeing her on the list and yeah,
Yeah, good.
be interesting. I don't know why she would have been, what interest she had in this subject. I haven't spoken to her for a few years, but that,
So she may be involved in the league's committee, that's the
Ah.
town government committee
Yeah.
of the league. That's quite interested in this, so
Maybe she's more interested in getting involved in
maybe so.
town things.
All right, so it's 3:45, but what do you think? Should we keep thinking together about this, or shall we adjourn?
Yeah, well, just one question. Terry, did you mention there being in the report like a need for a list of the big questions that we discussed kind of thing?
Right, Stephen was talking about, chapter 1 was the charge, and then chapter 2 would be, okay, we had our charge, now what were some of the big questions that came up?
Mhm.
Like, what's a large project?
Why 5 million?
Yeah,
Yeah, the
I
problems.
could try to kind of consolidate that.
Okay, that'd be great, Carl. Be excellent. So
and Carl, a
a
lot
list
of,
of the pressing issues.
right, and a lot of these questions are on the PowerPoint from the public forum.
Right.
Not all of them, I think most.
Yeah,
Okay, that would be excellent.
PowerPoint, I mean, actually, it does kind of outline a lot of what we would have in the report now.
That was gonna be my comment, Elise. Before I was about to make a motion to adjourn, you asked for comments about the
Yeah,
about the public forum. And I think my overall comment was, as disjointed and herky-jerky as coming together to prepare that presentation, it flowed really well, which is a sign that we actually ended up with a pretty good work product to present to the community, even though it's certainly, I think we all have, and I certainly have done my fair share of developing and presenting PowerPoint presentations to community groups. And I certainly didn't feel like, we had something that was really cohesive because of how it got, developed over time and with, many authors. But once we started presenting it, flowing it, I was like, well, this is going really well. This all really makes sense. And it came together at the end, but it came together very well. So I think as we pivot now towards developing our recommendations for the board and kind of messaging the community, I feel like we have a launch pad that's really solid that I think the day before the public forum, I didn't think was there. So that's a credit to the group, really.
I agree. I totally agree. I was really pleased. And it's one of the silver linings of COVID that we had that extra time to prepare. And because, even a month before the public forum, we were not ready at all. So it was really good. It flowed. I think really there's only one weak point, and that's what we've already discussed today, that we're going to need a couple of really good discussions about the specifics of this enhanced process. And I think that's the only weak point in the whole presentation, really.
well, we intentionally crafted that presentation without a firm punchline, without a firm recommendation. And so I think that may be why it felt like a soft presentation. I think it benefited from having every task force member present a piece of it. I think that was, that showed reasonably good integration. So I think you're right, Terry, that as we take up the specifics of the enhanced program, that will give us our strong punchline for the recommendations.
And do you kind of see, Elise, that the way we divided up the public forum, each person had a few slides in this written report to the select board? Are you thinking each committee member will take one little section of the report to write?
I'd like to do that. I think the shared authorship, as Stephen points out, is challenging sometimes, but I think if every member could contribute to the report, then we could assign someone to actually do the final editing, so it sounds like it's in one voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
And I think the elements of the recommendations kind of break out by discipline and interest among the task force members. So and responsibility. So it's, so we can work on that as well. Okay, good, excellent. I'm happy to stay on and talk more if you want, and but if not, we'll,
Motion to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Anybody opposed? Okay,
Aye.
thank you all for joining us, and see you in January. I hope your holidays are great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stay safe.
Happy holidays,
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
Tonight
Yeah,
and tomorrow,
thanks.
yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Here.